the bitter woman. The early morning mist hung thick over New Orleans, clinging to the narrow, muddy streets like a ghostly shroud. The city was still in its infancy, with rough-hewn wooden buildings and bustling marketplaces. The scent of salt water mixed with the earthy aroma of the surrounding bayou, creating a heady, oppressive atmosphere. In a small, dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of the town, Serana stirred from a restless sleep. She was old, her body frail and bent from years of hard labor and heartbreak. Her face was a map of deep lines and wrinkles, each one etched by years of bitterness and disappointment. Her once vibrant hair was now a thin, silvery veil that barely covered her scalp. She moved slowly, her joints aching with every step as she shuffled to the window. Serana peered out at the street, her eyes narrowing as she watched the townspeople go about their morning routines. She was a familiar figure to them, but not a welcomed one. To them, she was the old hag who lived alone, the woman who spoke to no one unless she had to, who never smiled or showed kindness. She was mistrusted and disliked, and she knew it. Her thoughts drifted back to the life she once imagined for herself. She had been young and hopeful once, dreaming of a family and a future filled with love and laughter. But those dreams had shattered long ago. Her husband, a charming but unreliable man, had abandoned her when she was still young, leaving her to fend for herself. Her only child, a sweet, fragile boy, had died of fever before his second birthday. The loss had hollowed her out, leaving a void that nothing could fill. Serana's life since then had been one of survival. She took in laundry, sewed clothes, and did whatever odd jobs she could find to keep a roof over her head and food in her belly. She had grown hard and cynical, mistrusting everyone she met. In return, the townspeople kept their distance, whispering about her behind her back, calling her a witch, a hag, a curse upon the town. She turned away from the window and began her morning routine. The small hearth in the corner of the room held the remnants of last night's fire. She added a few sticks of wood and fanned the embers back to life, then set a pot of water to boil. As she waited, her eyes fell on the only photograph she owned, a faded image of her younger self with her husband and child. She reached for it, but her hand stopped short, hovering in the air before she withdrew it. It was too painful to remember what she had lost. The water boiled, and she made herself a thin porridge, eating it slowly as she listened to the sounds of the waking city, the clatter of horse-drawn carts, the calls of vendors, the distant hum of conversations, all reminders of a world that had moved on without her. Later, she would go to the market to sell the few vegetables she managed to grow in her small garden. It was the only time she interacted with the townspeople, and even then, it was only out of necessity. They would avoid her eyes, hurry through their transactions, and move on as quickly as possible. She would return home, her heart a little heavier with each passing day. As the morning sun began to burn away the mist, Serana prepared to leave. She wrapped the worn shawl around her shoulders, picked up her basket of vegetables, and stepped out into the street. She kept her head down, avoiding the curious and suspicious glances of those she passed. She had grown used to the isolation, to the life of a pariah. It was easier to be alone, to not expect anything from anyone, to let the bitterness protect her from further pain. But as she walked through the bustling market, a part of her still longed for something more. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had been cheated out of a different life, a better life, and that bitterness, that unfulfilled longing, gnawed at her soul, making her more vulnerable than she would ever admit. Serana's life was one of shadows and regret, and as she moved through the city she had known all her life, she couldn't help but feel that something was watching her from those shadows, something waiting for the right moment to strike. But for now, she remained oblivious, trapped in her own sorrow and resentment, unaware of the darkness that would soon engulf her world. The doctor. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the bustling streets of New Orleans. Serana trudged back toward her small home, the paltry earnings from the market clutched tightly in her hand. The day's weariness weighed heavily on her frail frame, and her thoughts were as dark as the encroaching night. As she rounded a corner, a group of rough-looking men emerged from the shadows. They moved quickly, surrounding her before she had a chance to react. One of them grabbed her arm, his grip like iron, while another wrenched the money from her hand. "Please, I have nothing else," Serana pleaded, her voice trembling. The men laughed cruelly. "This all you've got, old hag," one sneered, tossing the few coins into the air before pocketing them. "Not even worth our time." Before she could respond, a fist struck her cheek, sending her sprawling to the ground. They kicked and beat her until her vision blurred with pain. Finally, satisfied with their cruelty, they left her lying in the dirt, gasping for breath. Serana lay there for what felt like an eternity, the cold ground seeping into her bones. With every ounce of strength she had left, she began to crawl, each movement a fresh agony. The streets were empty now, the townspeople safe in their homes, oblivious to her suffering. Halfway home, Serana felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. As darkness threatened to overtake her, a pair of worn leather boots appeared in her line of vision. She heard a gentle, concerned voice. "Madam, are you all right? Here, let me help you." "I do not need help from anyone," Serana spat, her voice weak but filled with defiance. "Please, I insist," the old man said, his tone soothing. "You are in no condition to refuse." With reluctance, Serana allowed the man to lift her to her feet. He was strong despite his age, his hands steady and sure. Supporting her weight, he guided her the rest of the way to her cottage. Inside, the man set her gently on a chair. "I am Dr. Thorne." He introduced himself as he began to examine her injuries. "Let me bandage these wounds." Serana watched him warily, her distrust palpable. "Why would you help me? No one else does." Dr. Thorne smiled sadly. "Because I can see you need it, and it is not safe for anyone to be out alone at night." Serana winced as he cleaned and dressed her wounds. "I needed money," she muttered, "but now even that has been taken from me." The doctor nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Let me make you a hot drink. It will help with the pain." He moved about the small kitchen with practiced ease, soon returning with a steaming cup. Serana accepted it, the warmth a small comfort against the chill in her bones. As they sat, Dr. Thorne broke the silence. "Why do you stay here, Serana? Why do you keep going when life has been so cruel to you?" Serana stared into the cup, her voice a hollow echo of past sorrows. "I have known pain my whole life. This is nothing new. My husband left me. My child died. I have faced hardship at every turn, but I cannot stop trying. I feel that all of this suffering must be for a reason, a test." "From God?" the doctor asked softly. Serana shook her head. "Unlikely. I do not think even he would have me suffer so much, but I know that if I do not quit, if I endure and use all the pain of my life, one day I shall be rewarded." Dr. Thorne's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he listened. "You believe in your strength, then? That is commendable." Serana met his gaze, her own eyes hard and unyielding. "I have nothing else to believe in." The doctor nodded slowly, his expression inscrutable. "Perhaps your reward is closer than you think, Serana. Sometimes we find what we seek in the most unexpected places." Serana frowned, uncertain of his meaning, but as the warmth of the drink spread through her, she allowed herself a moment of hope. For the first time in years, Someone had shown her kindness. Perhaps, just perhaps, her suffering had not been in vain. Dr. Thorne rose to leave, his presence lingering like a shadow. "I will check on you tomorrow," he said. "Rest now, Serana. You have endured enough for one night." As the door closed behind him, Serana sat in the silence of her small home, the doctor's words echoing in her mind. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of something other than despair. It was a small, fragile hope, but it was enough to keep her going. The turning point. Serana awoke the next morning, her body still aching from the previous night's ordeal. The bruises and cuts from the attack throbbed with each movement, reminding her of the violence she had endured. Her first thought, however, was not of her pain, but of her dire financial situation. How would she pay the landlord? How would she buy food? All her money had been stolen. She glanced over at the small chair where Dr. Thorne had sat the night before. Her eyes widened in disbelief. There, on the seat, was a pile of Spanish dollar coins, far more than she had ever earned at the market, enough to live comfortably for many months. Despite the pain, a smile crept across her face for the first time in years. Moving gingerly, Serana hid a portion of the coins in a small, loose floorboard beneath her bed. She then gathered the rest and set out to pay the landlord. Her steps were slow and deliberate, each one sending a jolt of pain through her battered body, but the promise of financial security gave her strength. When she arrived at the landlord's house, she found him outside, inspecting a new delivery of supplies. He looked up, his face souring at the sight of her. "Late again with the rent, Serana. This really is the last time. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "But I have the money," she said, holding out the coins. The landlord snatched the money from her hand, counting it quickly before pocketing it. His expression remained cold. "This will cover what you owe, but I still want you gone. You're bad for the area. People see you as an unlucky woman. And what do you care? You'll be dead soon, and good riddance." Serana's hands clenched into fists at her sides, her anger and bitterness boiling over. "How dare you?" she spat. "I've paid you what I owe. You have no right to throw me out." The landlord sneered. "You should be grateful I haven't done it sooner. Now get out of my sight." Trembling with rage, Serana turned and walked back toward her home, the landlord's cruel words echoing in her mind. "This surely must be enough," she muttered to herself. "This must be it. I will take it, whatever you need me to endure. All this will make me stronger. My pain is my strength." As she reached her cottage, she noticed the door was ajar. Her heart sank, a sense of foreboding washing over her. She rushed inside, only to find the small space ransacked. Her few belongings were scattered, broken, and torn. Panic surged through her as she hurried to where she had hidden the coins. The loose floorboard was exposed, and the hidden money was gone. Serana collapsed to her knees, her vision blurring with tears. "How much more?" she screamed, her voice raw with despair. "How much more must I endure?" A voice from behind her answered softly, "No more. You have endured and fought, and your time is now." Serana turned, her breath catching in her throat. Dr. Thorne stood in the doorway, his expression full calm and knowing. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Thorne stepped closer, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her shiver. "I have watched you, Serana. I have seen your strength, your resilience. You have endured more than most could bear, and yet you still stand. Your pain has not been in vain. It has prepared you for something greater." Serana's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and hope. "What are you saying?" The doctor's smile was both kind and enigmatic. "I am offering you a way out of this suffering, a chance to reclaim your life and more, but it will come at a cost. Are you willing to pay it?" Serana's heart pounded in her chest. "I will do whatever it takes," she whispered. "I cannot endure this life any longer. I need to be free." Dr. Thorne nodded. "Then come with me. Your new life awaits." As Serana rose to her feet, a strange sense of calm settled over her. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but anything was better than the endless cycle of pain and despair she had known. She took a deep breath and followed Dr. Thorne into the night, ready to embrace whatever fate had in store for her. Dr. Thorne's home was a stark contrast to the dilapidated cottage Serana called home. Set back from the bustling streets of New Orleans, the estate was lavish, with tall iron gates and a winding path that led through manicured gardens to a grand, stately house. As they stepped inside, Serana marveled at the opulence, the high ceilings, the intricate woodwork, and the rich tapestries that adorned the walls. "This place is magnificent," Serana said, her voice filled with awe. "Yes, it is a place I am renting for a short while," Dr. Thorne replied, leading her into a luxurious sitting room. "Please, make yourself comfortable." Serana sank into a plush armchair, feeling the weight of her exhaustion settling over her. Dr. Thorne took a seat opposite her, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "Tell me about your childhood, Serana," he said softly. "I wish to understand you better." Serana hesitated, then began to speak, her voice tinged with the bitterness of old wounds. "My childhood was hard. I lost my parents when I was very young. I survived alone on the streets for months before being taken to an orphanage. It was a harsh place, more like a prison than a home. The caretakers were cruel and food was scarce. We were treated like animals." Dr. Thorne listened intently, his expression unreadable. "And your marriage?" "I was married at 16, Serana continued, her voice growing colder, "to a man who promised to take care of me, but he was no better than the caretakers at the orphanage. He beat me, used me, and then left me alone. I was pregnant when he abandoned me." Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke of her son. "My boy was the only light in my life, but he was frail. He died of fever before he turned 2. After that, I was truly alone. The townspeople shunned me. They saw me as cursed, unlucky. I've struggled every day just to survive, excluded and ridiculed at every turn." Dr. Thorne leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "And yet, you continued on." "Why?" "Because I felt I was being tested," Serana replied, her voice firm. "I believed that all this suffering must be for a reason, that if I endured, I would be rewarded. But now I'm not so sure." Dr. Thorne's gaze intensified. "And what would you do if I gave it all back to you? Your youth, your strength? Would you change your life, help others, and live easily?" Serana's lip curled into a sneer. "No, I would punish those who treated me wrong. They deserve to suffer as I have suffered." Dr. Thorne's eyes flashed with a dark light as he stood, his voice ringing with conviction. "Yes, it will not be pretty. It will not be pleasant. It will cause you great pain and sorrow, and you will hate the world more than you hate it already. But you will be able to punish those who deserve punishment." Serana stared at him, her heart pounding. "How?" "It matters not how," Dr. Thorne said, his voice low and menacing. "Do you agree to more pain, more suffering, much more than you have ever endured, but with the light of redemption?" Without hesitation, Serana spoke. "Yes." Dr. Thorne's face twisted into a grotesque smile. His fangs lengthened from his mouth, his eyes sank into dark pits, and his skin turned deathly pale. "Then prepare to become one of us." He lunged forward, sinking his teeth into Serana's neck. She screamed in agony as a burning pain seared through her body. Her vision blurred, and she felt her life draining away. The world around her faded to black, the last thing she saw being Dr. Thorne's monstrous face, watching over her with a twisted satisfaction. The room was silent, except for the sound of Dr. Thorne's breathing. He stood over Serana's lifeless body, his eyes glinting with the promise of the horrors to come. The first taste. Days later, Serana opened her eyes. She lay on a bed inside Dr. Thorne's estate, surrounded by opulent furnishings. Strangely, she felt no pain. Rising with ease, she marveled at her muscles, feeling strong and limber. But when she looked back at the bed, she saw strands of her silver hair on the pillow. Her hands, now aged far beyond her years, trembled as she felt her head. Her hair had fallen out, leaving her bald. Panic surged through her as she rushed to find a mirror, but there were none in the room. The door creaked open, and Dr. Thorne entered, a satisfied smile on his face. "At last you have returned," he said. Angrily, Serana rushed across the room to him, but instead of walking or running, she merged into shadow and appeared before him. Dr. Thorne clapped his hands. "Excellent. You have the making of a first-class elder." "What has happened to me?" Serana demanded. "My hair. My body is older, but I feel stronger." Dr. Thorne nodded. Yes. It's because you need to feed." "Feed?" Serana repeated, puzzled. "Yes," Dr. Thorne said. "So, who will it be first?" Serana's mind raced. "The landlord," she said, her voice cold. "Ah, yes." "Then let us go," Dr. Thorne said. As they navigated the shadows, Serana felt a new power coursing through her. She moved from shadow to shadow, almost instantaneously. Within moments, they were at the landlord's home. "Now, Serana," Dr. Thorne instructed, "just as I did to you. You must drink from his neck. Do not let him live. Drink deep, and drink it all. I will be here for you if need be." Serana walked up to the door and gave it a push, her strength unexpectedly smashing the door apart. She smiled, reveling in her newfound power. Inside, the landlord looked up in shock. "Who are you?" he asked, not recognizing Serana at first. Then his eyes widened in fear. "Serana, is that you? You can have your cottage back." She saw the small stack of Spanish dollars on his table, the same coins she had hidden. Fueled by rage, she moved through shadow, appearing with her teeth bared. She sank her fangs into his neck, drinking deeply. Ecstasy and pleasure surged through her as the crimson liquid rejuvenated her body. Her hair grew thick and black, her face regained its youth, and her lips turned a deep red. Her skin became smooth and vibrant. By the time she finished drinking, she was restored to her youthful self. She threw the landlord's lifeless body aside and screamed into the night. "I will punish you all." Dr. Thorne watched her with a twisted smile. "Welcome to your new life, Serana. The world will soon know your wrath." Serana stood in the moonlit doorway, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. The taste of blood still lingered on her lips, and she felt invincible. For the first time, she had the power to exact her revenge, to make those who wronged her pay. The world that had once shunned and beaten her would now tremble before her. A new beginning. Back at Dr. Thorne's estate, the opulent surroundings now felt different to Serana. She had tasted power and revenge, and her senses were heightened with her newfound strength. She stood in the grand sitting room, feeling the weight of her transformation, as Dr. Thorne approached her one last time. "I must now leave," Dr. Thorne said, his voice calm yet final. "I will forever be proud to have given you your chance, Serana. You will be one of our best, I am sure." "Where are you going?" Serana asked, a flicker of vulnerability in her voice. "This I cannot tell you," Dr. Thorne replied. "Do not follow me or seek to find me. I do not wish to be found. You are alone again, Serana, but with the power to change everything." Before he left, Dr. Thorne handed Serana a set of papers. She took them, her eyes widening as she read the deeds to the estate. "I did say I was renting this," he said with a smile. "From you, this place is yours. Do me proud, Serana. Make them all pay for what they have done to you." With that, Dr. Thorne merged into the shadows and vanished, leaving Serana alone in the grand house. She stood in the silence, the deeds clutched in her hand, a sense of profound change settling over her. Serana walked through the estate, exploring every room, the lavish decor, the beautiful furnishings. It was all hers now. She reached the master bedroom and paused, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was long and black, her skin smooth and youthful, her eyes burning with a fierce light. She was beautiful, powerful, and immortal. But as she stood there, a pang of emptiness gnawed at her. She had everything she had ever dreamt of, except a family. That loss, the void left by her husband and child, could not be filled by power or wealth. It was a wound that no amount of revenge could heal. "This is not enough," she whispered to herself. "For this, they will all pay." She turned away from the mirror and sat down in the grand dining hall, staring at the deeds. The estate was vast, isolated from the prying eyes of the town. It was the perfect place to plot her next moves. The people who had shunned her, who had treated her with cruelty and disdain, would now face her wrath. Serana began to formulate her plans. She would start with those who had hurt her the most. The townspeople who had ridiculed her, the merchants who had cheated her. One by one, she would exact her revenge, using her newfound powers to bring them to their knees. But beyond revenge, she saw a future where she could create something new. She could build a family of her own kind, a coven of powerful beings who understood her pain and shared her thirst for justice. Together, they would rule the night, feared and revered by all. As the night deepened, Serana felt a surge of determination. Dr. Thorne had given her the means, and now it was up to her to use them. She was no longer the bitter, broken woman of the past. She was Serana, the Avenger, the bringer of justice, and the world would soon know her name. With renewed purpose, Serana rose from her seat and walked to the grand entrance of the estate. The night was hers, and she had much to do. She stepped into the shadows, merging with them effortlessly, and vanished into the darkness, ready to begin her reign of vengeance. A reunion in blood. Seated in a small, dimly lit tavern, Serana sat alone, her head covered with a hood, hiding her face from the prying eyes around her. The tavern was filled with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and drunken songs. She watched an old man at a nearby table, laughing and joking as he drank. Despite his age, he flirted shamelessly with the younger women, trying to get them drunk. When a servant brought more drinks, he slapped her for taking too long. Serana's eyes narrowed. This was her husband from many years ago, the man who had abandoned her, who had left her to fend for herself in a world that had shown her no mercy. Slowly, she lowered her hood, revealing her pale skin, red lips, and jet black hair. She was beautiful, a vision of deadly allure. She walked up to the man, her movements graceful and purposeful. "Buy me a drink, sir," she said, her voice smooth and enticing. The man looked at her, a flicker of recognition passing over his features, but then he was taken aback by her beauty. "Of course," he said, leering at her. "Like them a bit older, do you?" He motioned for her to sit next to him. Serana sat down, and he placed his hand on her leg. She placed her hand over his and began to squeeze, her strength crushing his hand. He winced in pain, trying to pull away, but she held him fast. With a hard squeeze, she squashed his hand, breaking the bones in it. He cried out in pain, but no one paid heed, too accustomed to his antics in this tavern. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice cold and sharp. He looked at her, his eyes wide with pain and fear. "Serana," he whispered, "how is this possible?" "You made this possible," she replied. "You and people like you made this possible. Now I will show you the impossible." In plain sight, she sank her teeth into his neck. The tavern patrons, too engrossed in their own revelry, didn't notice a thing. She drank deeply, feeling the pure pleasure of the crimson liquid rejuvenate in her, making her feel more powerful with each drop. When she finished, she stood up, letting his lifeless body slump to the floor. She walked out of the tavern, the cold night air hitting her face. She looked up at the moon, a twisted smile playing on her lips. "If you could see yourselves as I see you," she spoke to the night. "Food in the guise of predators. You are no more predators than birds to bugs. I am not a bug anymore. I am your death." Her words hung in the air, a chilling promise of the retribution she would bring. The town of New Orleans had not seen the last of Serana. With every life she took, her power grew, and with it, her resolve to punish those who had wronged her. She was no longer the bitter, broken woman of her past. She was vengeance incarnate, and the world would tremble before her. The sage's warning. Years later, Serana sat alone in a small churchyard, the moonlight casting a silvery glow over the unmarked grave before her. She felt a deep sorrow, but her inability to express grief gnawed at her insides. She could not cry. She simply sat there, a silent sentinel to her past. Years ago, this was the place her son was buried. She spoke softly to the grave, her voice filled with a hollow longing. "You were taken from me because I could not save you. I was helpless, penniless. You were my everything. Today, I could save you. If you were here, I could give you anything, everything. But when you needed it, I could give you nothing, nothing but my love. You were the only thing I loved. And even now, I can still feel you. I have great powers, but it's not enough to have what I truly need. You." As she lost herself in her thoughts, a figure stood behind her in the shadows. The figure spoke, his voice resonant and soothing. "I know of your pain, my child. As an elder, we are born from pain, from suffering. We would not endure the process otherwise." She turned to see an old man, an elder, his presence radiating a powerful, ancient energy. He stepped into the moonlight, his eyes reflecting centuries of wisdom and sorrow. He spoke again. "Know this, my dear. There is a place for you within my council. I am the sage, and I can help you on this journey." Serana looked up at the sage, her eyes filled with mistrust. "I have been taken in before by men saying they have my interest at heart. Never again. Never again will I be at the mercy of those who say they want to help me. Those that have said this are now dead. I have killed them all." The sage nodded slowly. "Yes, we all went through this, but the time will come when revenge loses its luster, and the killing no longer satisfies you. When that time comes, Seek me out. Until then, you are in a prison of your own making." Serana's voice was a low growl. "This world is my prison, and I shall punish those who built it until I am free." The sage disappeared into the shadows, his parting words lingering in the air. "When you are ready, my child." Serana looked up at the sky and smiled, a cold, determined smile. "Oh, it will be a long time before I'm done. I will make them all rue the day they imprisoned me." She rose from the grave, her resolve hardening with each step she took away from the churchyard. The world had taken everything from her, and now it was her turn to take everything from the world. With each act of vengeance, she felt a step closer to her own twisted form of justice. Her son's grave was a stark reminder of her lost humanity, but it also fueled her relentless quest for retribution. As the night deepened, Serana vanished into the darkness, her mind already plotting her next move. The sage's words echoed in her mind, a distant whisper of a future yet to come. But for now, her path was clear. She would not rest until every soul who had wronged her paid dearly, and one day, perhaps, she would seek out the sage, but not until her vengeance was complete.